Welcome to another developer diary video for my project DAWBuddy, which is becoming a bit of a mammoth. I've been working at this for a while. I've had a lot of headaches with it, going back to the drawing board, rewriting code. I'll talk about some of that at the end of the video. Most of the functionality that I want is in this now, and I'm just at the stage of refining a few things. Off the bat then, looks a bit different to the last video because this has been rewritten from the ground up again. We'll start off with the left controls here, so adding tracks. You can add instrument, audio, group, effects, and we also have divider tracks. Divider tracks are basically to break things up when you're working on a session in DAWBuddy, when you're setting up your templates. So you can label these whatever you want. You can label it. I know these are my legatos with my tracks, or these are my libraries with tracks. But I'll touch on this a bit more later when I show you the get names functions. As for our tracks, the basic things we can do, we can colorize them. Now uses swatches, and any swatches that you generate using my other online tool, the Cubase custom color palette, you can save those as JSON files, and then you'll be able to import them into DAWBuddy and use your own color palettes. We can rename tracks just by double clicking on the text header, name it whatever you want. If you want to go to the next track, while in renaming mode, you just hit tab like you can in Cubase and it'll take you to the next track. Type out whatever you want. In terms of moving tracks around, for now I've taken out the drag and drop functionality because it was causing a lot of problems, but I might put a more simplified version of it back in. But to move tracks around, you can just use your up and down arrow keys on the selected track. You can select multiple tracks if you hold shift, and you can also move those with the arrow keys. And then moving towards the right of the tracks, we have pan controls, volume controls, and we've also got the output routing as well. So we can, yes, handle all the routing now inside of this. For now though, it's just going to the main stereo output. If I wanted to send this to the output or change the output to go into this group here, then all I would do is select it from the list like so. With effects channels, if you create any of those and you want to send your instrument or audio tracks to the effects channel, then you can do that as well. So if we go over to this top menu, I need to kind of reformat some of these buttons because I've added other features and I just need to, tidy up this toolbar. So for now, just take it with a pinch of salt. But if we go to the mix view here, that should be called project view, by the way. Click on this, it'll take you over to the sends view. And now we've got these buttons here that we can click on to choose a send from the list to assign like so. So now we've created a send going to the effects channel, and the output of the effects channel is going to the stereo output or master, but we can route this back into the group if we want to. Now, if we click on this, it will give you the options to change the send level and all that stuff, but I need to work on the UI for that. There's little things that I haven't finished yet, so I'm going to rework the UI. When it also comes to adding tracks in the project, this is where it gets pretty cool. If you want to add tracks in bulk, you check this box here, and then you click on the track type and you'll get this pop-up dialog. So now I can specify I want these 10 instrument tracks. I'm going to give those instrument tracks the color red. And let's say I want to create a group for those tracks and route the outputs of them to the group bus. I can just check on this here and we can give the bus a name. So I could call this brass bus. And then let's say we also want to create a send to go to a new effects channel. I can just check this box here and then just give it a name. I don't know, brass, verb. Now, link groups I'll explain shortly. But for now, let's just add these tracks in. So there you go. We've just created 10 tracks and we've set up the routing just from one dialog window. When it comes to link groups, you can just take tracks in the project and you can link them together to create a group. So it's easier to move them around in bulk. And one way you can do it is by clicking on this button up here called link, or you can press L on the keyboard to facilitate this. And I can just call this brass. Now, if I have multiple groups, in fact, let me just close this and open up a different project to demonstrate. So if you've got multiple groups that you've created like I have here, you can, move them around using your arrow keys. They won't intersect with each other. They'll respect each other's position in the list, and you can do this from the link groups pane at the left here. But you can also do stuff like, let's say I want to reorganize some of the instruments in the group. I can just come over to the left, click on edit, select or multi-select the tracks I want to move around, up, down arrow keys to move them, click done, relinks the group. You can show and hide groups as well while you're working, and while they're hidden, you can also reorder them as well in the project if you like, which is pretty useful. Now, in terms of visibility stuff, well, actually, before we go on to that, you can rename groups as well. I forgot, you can double click on this or up here, but I might remove this header up here because it's I'm running out of space with stuff until I start creating the icons for the different controls and then create more space. But yeah, I'll fix that. But you can rename groups just by double clicking and renaming them as well if you want. Okay, right, moving on. We have in the tool menu up here different ways you can toggle the view for different track types. So let me go ahead and just create a bunch of audio tracks and group tracks. If I just want to only work on the audio tracks, I can turn off the view for the other stuff and it will just show me the audio tracks in the list. If I want to turn those off, I can. If I just want to look at instrument tracks, I can. If I want to look at groups, or if we've got, any dividers or any effects. I keep forgetting to turn this off here. Yeah, we can toggle the views for those as well, which is useful. And while we're in this top tool menu here, if we do have a bunch of stuff hidden in the project or toggled off, you can show them all just by clicking on this eye icon here. Now in the tracks list, you'll notice that if we change the color of this, you'll see how it colorizes the backgrounds here for the tracks as well. There's a button to turn that on and off if you want. I've added it in just because I find it helps you to quickly see, where one set of tracks starts and ends. Moving across, we have those buttons for link and unlink, but we also have some other buttons which are similar to how the functions work when we use the dialog here to connect groups and returns to tracks that we already have. So let's say then I want to take this selected bunch of tracks and I want to create a group and route it to them quickly. I can just hit G on the keyboard and call this bus, Woodwinds bus, and you'll see it takes me to the bottom of the list and shows me that. And if we scroll back up, you can see it's now connected to them. And obviously we can do the same as well for effect sends. Press F on the keyboard and do it that way. And then when you go over to the sends window, if you hold shift, you can do things like bulk adjust all of these controls. But again, I need to sort out the UI and that and where these are. It's just little things you'll have to excuse in this video. Before we go over to the right side actually and touch on the mixer, I want to talk to you about the import stuff. So in the other videos, I showed you a feature called Get Names, which would literally scan a directory for instruments and then return the names for those patches and bring them into your project. Now, this only currently works with Contact and Opus. I can't get this to work with other samplers like Musio or the Spitfire player or Sign, because they don't really have a directory where you can see instrument patches. They're kind of hidden. So for those, I'd have to create some kind of database of all the different track names that they use, so you can just chuck them into the project nice and quick. But for now, if you have Contact or Opus, this will work. So with Get Names, you have two approaches to pulling in the track names. Hybrid will do the following. So if we choose, let's go for Spitfire, Albion 1 library, this will be interesting. Actually, yeah, this will be interesting. This won't probably work for this because I've just thought I need to add some more logic in. But if I import this in, oh no, it's kind of worked. Yeah, I'll do it with a library that I know works at the moment. There's still some things with the logic I need to fix. But essentially what this will do will bring all of the tracks in and it will detect orchestral instruments and it will put them in pitch order for the organization of all the tracks and it will group them together. But I've just realized if you have a library that has loads of sort of random patch names for, these synth patches and that, I need to build some logic in to filter that and organize them differently. So let me do this again and I'll show you with with a library that I know will work. So if we go to, say, I don't know, Sinistring Solo, I know it'll work for this one. So if we open this up, import in, you'll see how it's brought those in. It's placed the divider track at the top and give you the name of the library, but it's also tried to organize everything in terms of, concert pitch order, so violins, the violas, cellos, and bass. And if we try this on a brass library, let's go for Cinebrass Pro. Import. There you go. It's done the same for that. So there will be little quirks that I'll need to add into the logic, depending on the different libraries to compensate for variables. But generally speaking, it does a pretty good job of organizing stuff for you. So this leads us on to the split approach. So if we clear these and use the split approach, what this will do is, instead of returning the root folder and placing all the tracks in a list with, the library header, it will create a dividing header for each folder it's extracted the names for patches from. So again, if we did this to Cinebrass and click import, you'll see how it's created the split patches and then showed me all the track names for split patches it's brought in. And then for instruments, all of the track names for the instruments. And it does try to organize them. Out of curiosity though, I think I'm going to try that on the Spitfire Albion 1 library that we tried to import just. So Spitfire Albion 1. Let's see how this works. It might actually work a lot better in this case. Okay, there's quite a lot of patches in this. I forgot. So yeah, it actually works. Yeah, it works better if you use the split approach. It's only with the hybrid approach. So we have the cog patches, individual patches. At least that's a bit more usable than using the hybrid approach. So that's how those work anyway, the import options. And the idea is just to basically save you time trying to type all this out. And then if you want to rename anything, change anything, well, that leads us over to the right area here with the bulk rename options. Now, how this works is by default it's turned off, because all the different features and functions interact have had to kind of keep in mind a little bit, and I'm hoping the workflows for this is all right and you guys don't mind it. So by default it's off. If we turn it on to all, it means any of the controls that we use here, say find and replace. Let's look for PTX space dash. Now, if we type that in and go to apply, it can remove those, okay? So we can use this to tidy up the names. Now, if there are any specific tracks that I want to target, I can put it in select mode like this. And what it will do is any linked groups, in fact, let me open up this here. If there's any linked groups, you can't like individually select the tracks unless you, deselect and hold control like this. Or put it in edit mode, okay? So when you put this into select mode or selected, it will unlink the group for everything. So you have access to single click and shift click to select things. And then any of these filters that you use will apply to that selection. So for example, if I wanted to append these like so, it'll only do it to that selection. If we change this back to all, it will apply it to all the tracks in the project, okay? So like that. I might build in some very subtle sort of UI things to indicate that better. So when you have, selected and it goes back to all, it deselects these and I don't know, selects everything in the project or something just to, communicate that across. Yeah, we have find and replace. We have append, prepend, remove, which you might not actually need, but it's there anywhere. Right. What else? So over here, we have the project controls. So new project. We can open a JSON file, which is what you've seen me do. Basically, you can save your configurations as a JSON. It will retain all the information, routing, and everything you've configured, bring it into the project, and you can carry on working on it, save over it, do whatever you like. If you've created a template from scratch, you can save it as a JSON file as well. And down here, we have things for the metadata of your file. So you can give it a project name. You can assign the tempo, the time signature, which also get carried over to your project. So if I've just load this demo one up here where I've got things pre-routed, let's say I want the tempo to be 200 BPM and I want this to be 6/4. I'll add that in. And to the right of these, you have a thing called notes, which I'll talk about in a sec. You can add a version number, and you can also assign the date for when you created or updated this as well. Now, notes on the export engine or export panel that I'll show you in a minute, you have the ability to export your project as a PDF, and it will take all of the information and put it into like a spreadsheet for you, so you can keep. Now here you can put in notes for that PDF. So, you know, what libraries you've used or any little details about the setup. And then if we go to the export here, you'll see that we have 4 different options. All of these export, these 3 here, export to the DAW project format. Now, the reason why there's 3 different ones, one for Bitwig, Cubase, Studio One, is because there's some slight differences in how they handle tracks or how their tracks work. So that means for each DAW, I've had to kind of compensate for those differences. So if I'm exporting to Cubase, for example, I'd have to use this one. But if I don't, and I use a Bitwig export and then try and import that into Cubase, it will have some like duplicate tracks and some random folders added. So let me actually just show you that in practice. So if I export this as BT, let me delete these other ones actually. These are just test files. BT for Bitwig. And I then try to open up Bitwig. I've got it on the other screen, but I'll drag it across. So I don't own Bitwig license, but the good thing, I'm glad they let you do this, is that you can run it in demo mode to at least open up project files to check. Okay, so you can see here it's opened up our project file and it's retained the things like the volume and any sends and all that kind of stuff. Now, if I try to open up the very same file in Cubase, like so, you'll see in a second how this creates all sort of like random duplicate folders that we didn't, create in our project. So that's why you have these different export engines. So if I export that same configuration from DAWBuddy, but using the Cubase export and call it CB, go back to Cubase, import that bad boy in, and you can see how that's now formatted correctly for Cubase. And again, it retains any configurations. Now, pan won't show on Cubase tracks until they're loaded with a sampler, but they will show for audio tracks and that kind of thing. But yeah, retains all the controls, the send configurations, and the output routing for your groups and effects. Now, going back to DAWBuddy, I want to show you the mixer that I'm working on, because it's all well and good having these views, for the main project here, but sometimes you might want to use a kind of mixer view for routing and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's not finished, I'm still working on it, but if we click on mixer, it'll take you over to the console view here. So this will allow us to change the level or faders for the individual tracks in the project. We can adjust the pan for them. We can also change the view here, wide, narrow views, that kind of stuff. We have insert slots, which is kind of something I've got planned for the future. We have the sends as well, and I want to redesign these a little bit because I don't quite like how they're displayed. But any sends you have, any inserts, you can scroll through these separately, kind of like how Cubase works. Expand, collapse, use the mouse wheel to scroll horizontally, and you also have a Q-link feature. So basically, if I've got the channels like set up like this, and we've got different pans and all that thing, and I want to link these together because I want to adjust, I don't know, the volume for all of these, then I can do so and it will keep their relative relationships, okay? Same with the pan as well. It'll always keep their relationships. If I want to reset everything, I can just double click on it and it'll reset everything back to the default and keep those relationships as well. And we can also deselect Q-Link. It's just something I thought would be useful to add in now before I start doing the other things with it. But yeah, that's, I think I've covered everything. I might have missed a couple of things actually in translation. Track heights, yeah, you can adjust those as well. Yeah, lots of little details and little fixes that I need to make, but overall, I think we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Now, this leads me on to talking about samplers. In the last video, I showed you how I added in different samplers and we could, format those in. I had to go back to the drawing board with how I was implementing that because it was the incorrect way to do it and it would have just caused more problems. So the solution was to come up with an audio engine that could handle that side of things, scan for plugins, scan for, virtual instruments, and allow me to host them in the app. And I did a little test project using the Juice framework and managed to get 90% of what I wanted to work, although not perfect. And also there were some things I couldn't figure out how to do because I think you just can't do them. They're on a binary level and it's beyond my capability. But the plan with DAWBuddy is to create the light version, which is what you're seeing here, get this finished and polished up, release that, and then create another version of it where it's got an audio engine and some capability in it. But I want to have some help with setting that up because yeah, it's difficult. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm amazed I managed to get this far. There we go. Yeah, we'll leave that for another video. Oh, I forgot to show you the PDF export. PDF. If we go to this, click on PDF, there you go. How did I forget about that? What an honor. Yeah, there's some things with the PDF that are not quite accurate. So the project name should not be project ID. That should be project name, but yeah. It displays, the track count, your notes, your groups, effect sends, where they're going to, what color they are, how many members of the family are there. And then you've got a detailed breakdown of your tracks list, what track types, what colors, what names, where the sends are going to, what level they're going to, which that's incorrect. Send destination, i.e. where's the output of the send going. And then we've also got an overview of the actual channels, destination or output, pan and level. Okay, now we've got everything. I'm going to leave it there. I'm fried. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.